Hi everyone, Alex is here, and today we'll be talking about cyberattacks. So the thing that you cannot know about, because mostly if you think that all the systems right now are safe, sorry, but any system can be hacked, but any system can be saved. That's also true. But today we'll be talking exactly about some methods of cyberattacks. It not always will be software ones, but a couple of them would be. There will be some general terms to know about, and today we'll discover that. So, SQL injection. I think it's one of the most popular one. An idea here is quite simple. So basically, for example, login page. What you can do, you probably will write your login password or you as you wanted to. But a lot of years ago, when SQL only appeared, all the developers, hackers even, realized one critical thing. What will be SQL code inside? So basically, what is SQL code? SQL code is the code that is mostly using in touch for you. And it was quite easy. You're just writing simple that will execute. The problem have been here that the tables, etc., but most of them just people one that are still using, for example, database or table. What could such developer do? He was able just to write, select all of the users, and at that time not always the password was, so it was sometimes a problem that passwords, and be able to log in into his different usernames and logins, but I think it's not so hard sometimes, but not, it's quite big problem. But one of them just dropped the database with all the users, with all the payment system, with all the, I even can tell you, yes, there was such accidents. So how does it work with that? So basically right now all the modern tools they're using not a person. So you basically know what this person will write. And basically it writes very easy right now on the places where user will write its data written in the database. Such question marks are being passed, and with the specific functions with a different they're just putting will be just, it won't be as any SQL code. So that's an idea of that. And right now it's quite, you won't be writing SQL from scratch like real SQL statements. What I'm recommending you, especially inside of your application server, for sure, like don't do that. Just write methods, libraries, all will save you from the cross-site scripting, XSS. What's that? That's something similar to what we had before, but it's been using with JavaScript, and it's easier to tell you when we have comments. For example, we have YouTube. Someone can write a comment that can be just a JavaScript statement, and that just cookies that the user have, tokens, etc., and that able to change all the data. So that calls cross-site scripting. Idea here is a little bit similar with XSS SQL injection, while SQL injection was based on SQL, and if you will write this JavaScript code, like in any case it won't work, like it will work database, there won't be dropped anything, but the problem will be when this thing will be try to understand it as a real script, as a real JavaScript, and that will be the problem. So every time you're always should be the data that you're expecting, not the tag, not all those things. And right now we also have the methods like that are just helping you, firstly, not write tags in input fields. Like these input fields will be just redone from some of the symbols to some code in HTML that, or it also be able to do in JavaScript. But all of that are crucial moments here. So basically, once more time, try to in XSS attacks. So try always think that the user can write something wrong, and in 3 places: on database, front end, these 3 things. So it always should be string or not. But think about us. Imagine you have a store, and at one moment, a lot of people are coming to it, and they're going to, but they're just staying in line. You're saying, you want to buy that? Not, I just, and that's all what they do. Like 100 people just stay in line and doing nothing. What will cause that? That you will sell nothing. People will go after you, always a huge line. You won't have money. Finally, you'll be closed. That's the sad reality. But that's how DDoS is working. The same thing. You are making a lot of requests to the server, and the server can afford them because all the servers have the abilities to afford some of the requests, but some not if they're more than so. And DDoS is it's one of the most popular attacks right now. It's quite easy to start that, but it's not very easy to hold it for a long time because firstly, it's really costly because you're creating such botnet, and a lot of bots are just making requests to the specific URL, and you should create a really lot of them. For creating such a lot of the amount, you should have a lot of the computers. It can be a hackers group, or you should buy a lot of computers, and it won't be profit for you probably. And the next thing, the most important, that as such things, for example, like Cloudflare, it will just take the request that was going and will check if it's okay or not. Does it mean that all the requests will be blocked? Not. Does it mean that have been going from the real person can be able to be blocked? Yes. And that's okay practice. Like one maximum fire wasn't innocent, if that will be able to prevent 95 and more fake requests. That's DDoS attack. So it's like taking body, get away all of this. So that's an idea of DDoS. It's quite hard. Cloudflare can help. Management of your users can help you. Sometimes the feature can be so excited that it can be a DDoS attack. It really means that it's incredible, that really people like that. But it will be a problem. For example, in Ukraine there was a Eurovision event, and users have created DDoS attack on the system because the system wasn't thinking that so many people will. So that's one of the ideas. So it's not always it wasn't thinking that so many people. So that's why there is a rule. Think how many people can go and multiply that on 3. Better on 5. And then you can just monitor in the real time the data, and it's good to use some AVC that can scale automatically, so be able to understand how you can scale your fast as it can. So that's the crucial thing. Or how like your system can take less effort, so it will be able to take more people. That's the problem of that you. Let's go for some. Is when the fish, what logically here is when you're creating the same web page, the same, but it's different domain. When you will write some data there, especially login and password, it will be easy going to this and then take all the money. So it's quite easy. And this is quite bad, especially with the people who are really trust all the internet resources. They're the problem. To understand that the website is fake, unspeaking is really easy. Firstly, you should have, it means probably it's something bad. So always try to check HTTPS. S means secure. It means no one probably will take that. And about that issue we'll talk. The next thing, always check domain. Right now it's quite easy to discover them, like mails, domains, tollpay. What's that? was that. So that's the thing here. Sometimes the same order resource much similar to, but the problem is that not everyone is doing that because it's dangerous for hackers, because they should pay for such domains. If they will pay, they will write their names and card names, and then FBI, for example, SCI or others agents will be easily be able to find them, because such hosts they can discover who have bought it. Where that's why free domains, the H7 bad, because these domains really, like, they're freely bought it, and they can be easily changed, and etc. But it's easier to not write. And the same system works even with SMS, phone calls. It calls phishing when someone tries to catch you. So don't be. Who is that? Oh, that's man in the middle. That's also one of the issues. We have been talking about that one point in time. We have been talking about WebSockets, if I'm not mistaken. The idea here is quite nice. It's an attack when it's able to your computer and your server. So this man can take the request that you're making, and sometimes even response from it. It can take request and change that to the server. So how to be secured on that? You just should use S secure. Why such? Because in this way it will be harder to your request to replace that. That's why not use public Wi-Fi's. Like, you can use that, but use some VPNs, or for example you can use private relay by Apple, for example. They also works this system. Like, you can be connected to that system, but now even if you're on the public Wi-Fi, you're on risk, because anyone can be just, or owner can easily discover what you're looking on. So that's the problem. So that's the problem of man in the middle. Always use, firstly, not public Wi-Fi's. Secondly, try to use something on the background like private relay, or try to use VPN. Like, it depends on probably your private Wi-Fi and you're not using HTTPS. To double secure, you'll be able to use VPN 24 hours. It's not always works, and it's not always should be done in such a way. So that things. And lastly, use I told it. In any case, that's the problem. Someone can cut your data while they're going. If you will be able and wanted to discover how does it work, just write in the comments. Maybe I will. Ransomware. That's just a software application. It just encrypts all of your data and then writes a prompt. Probably some the most. Sometimes if you want, you're not able to. That's the problem. For me, you can do two things. Always check what you're downloading. That's why downloading something from the pirates' websites, from unknown resources, that's quite a problem, because that you can just. So try always to know what you're doing. Mind that it's better always to have backups, especially if you're a big company. You always will have backups, especially with your users' databases, because such problem can be with everything. It's like from the movies, if you have seen, like someone has written the code that is being injected somewhere. It's that social engineering. It's right now even not about this on internet. It's even about engineering. It's when you're trying to become another person, for example, and to hack the person, like to tell like FBI or from something like that. Like when you manipulate the problem. Or for example, you can have to give your CVV because someone will take it. All of that is just human engineering. It's social. That's how such cyberattack calls. And the problem here is that you always should call thinking, and I think the most important here it's double check. If even don't say that, you can recall them. For example, someone told that someone is in the hospital, put the phone, call the person for double check that, call the hospital, go by yourself. Just know that such problem is real big problem here. That's called human engineering. Social engineering. Always keep brute force. So when you have a system, it can be, physical chain, or it can be some password online. Brute force is when you have a program or some physical thing that just the only one thing here is firstly, use passwords from a lot of the services like Google, Apple. They can store unique taken by each password can be taken by brute force. But for such passwords, such programs, you understand it. No one. If you're making especially some easy passwords, that's the problem. Try to use some generated by the systems and be stored by the system, and not try to remember that. Just try to remember like one of the main and try to make it really hard. Numbers, not so typical, not, and you can write it down in the paper, like a lot of the things. But try that. And the last defense. Such also passwords can always use two-factor authorization. What does it mean? Very easy things. Mostly phones right now with Touch ID, or you're just double checking your request. For example, SMS on the phone, your fingerprint, your face, or for example, a call from the bank. It all goes two-factor authorization. So it means that the password was right. Okay, we wanted to check one more thing. And this you won't be able to discover like who the person was. His pet at one knows. Only that person knows. So that's the thing. Or the face. You cannot just check the face. Yes, in Mission Impossible that can be, but in reality probably you won't will be hacked in such a way. If you are of malware. Malware is the general term that means that any bad software applications. So in general, it can work for trojans, it can be some viruses, or it can be some advertisement programs, anything that information websites. It also can be by downloading something. So this thing, one important thing, don't go to unknown web resources or just resources. Don't download some permissions to turn on the camera on. That can be a problem. They can record you. That we don't the problem. That's the general term. But lastly, zero-day exploit. Zero-day exploit, one of the hardest in that basically means that developer has 0 days to solve the problem. It means that the problem is right now going on and the developers just had a problem that haven't been solved. So it's quite hard for both for developers to find it. So basically it means that someone the bug is solved and no one knows about that. It's quite hard to discover, but with modern AI it's easier to do that. And there is even one story. So, story about zero-day exploit. In 2012, there was a virus that was called Flame. An idea of that, and the problem was that it was able to go through the Windows system to different users and could make record of the voice, make the screenshots, especially in the Zoom, and also could able to turn on and turn off the camera. So it was all done automatically, and the problem is that only some researchers discovered one moment that there is such leak, and after that, only after that, after people have been involved in that, after there are already have been taken out of the information, they only started to fixing that. And firstly, it takes a lot of time to them to understand how does this virus works, where there is this bug. And the problem is in such systems that if it won't be updated, that is quite easy to be, this problem will be remained. And no one will fix that. They will still have the problem that. And I think you understand what will be. Like, entirely, the system will be damaged, and that's why sometimes there are critical alerts to download, especially in the newer system, they can do that. But the problem that earlier versions, especially in 2012, there wasn't such systems, and people just have been living with that, thinking that everything was okay, but it wasn't. So that's why zero-day exploit is one of the hardest one to find, to solve, and you should be extremely careful in creating the system. And checking paranormal activity. Because if there is a paranormal activity, probably someone have found zero-day in exploit. And I'm talking not about the request that can be done with DDoS. I mean about the activity, adding some files, checking them, downloading a lot of the information from a lot of the user at once. That can be weird. So that's the thing that you should always keep in mind. Thanks everyone for watching this video. I hope now you understand the difference between a huge amount of cyberattacks, how to solve them, how not to be trapped in that way. And as you can see, not always the problem is in the system, sometimes in the people, and mostly in that people who wanted to take this information, but we won't be able to go out of that. So remember one thing, all the systems can be broke, and all of them can be healed. All of them can be attacked, and all of them can be covered. It's a hard game, and there is special even engineers who are working on the security. Keep an eye on your security, because only you have your data, only you should control that. You can try to rely on the company, but even companies have making a lot of mistakes. That is, thank you a lot. I was happy to see you here. Bye.